Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, PBM, Customers Bank, Collins Building Services, AmTrust Title Insurance Company, Marks Paneth, Capital One Bank. Additional funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from Amerant Bank, Bank of America, Citizens Bank, Dime Community Bank, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handro Properties LLC Handler Real Estate Organization, Hodges Ward Elliott Inc., Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Kesmatidis, Red Apple Group, Keysight Capital Partners, New Banks, Meridian Capital Group, Ocean First Bank, People's United Bank, RPW Group, TD Bank, and these friends. How many people do you know could be considered the P.T. Barnum of banking? There is one individual who's grown 3 banks. He started with a small little bank called Commerce Bank and grew it. He then went to London and grew a bank called Metro. And now he's coming back to New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania with the wonderful Republic Bank. So today I'm fortunate to profile the life of Vernon Hill II, coupled with his buddy over there, Sir Duffy, as you can see over here on Building New York. Thanks for being my guest today, Vernon.
Thank you, Michael. Look forward to it.
So tell me about the family. Your father was from Virginia?
Great, raised in Northern Virginia. My father was an entrepreneur, created a residential real estate business from scratch. Told his son, of which I was the oldest, never to work for someone else, always create your own business. He had worked as a clerk in some bank during the war and thought all bankers went to Wharton, the Wharton School at Penn. So he pushed me to go to Wharton at Penn, and I did. What I've learned, people that succeed in life, everyone has a unique talent, a unique skill, and when they learn what that is and they match what they do in life, they have a chance of success, real success. And I went to Wharton. I worked in banks part-time. I had this unique cross ability to understand the banking business, but to make it a retailing fund business, just not another old bank. Our brand was built in multiple banks on the idea that great brands are built by creating fans. Fans join your brand, fans remain loyal, and they bring their friends. So some have said we invented retail banking in America by this fans approach, and that's what we've used in the 6 banks we've done.
Let's talk about, the Wharton days. When you went to Wharton, you were going to school in the morning, and in the afternoons, you were working once in a while for site selection for people over there.
Well, that was after I left Wharton. But when I was going to Wharton, I was going 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. Then I worked in this small bank, and I'd get to work at noon, and I was making commercial loans. I was 18 at the time, and the joke in this bank was you couldn't get a loan until Vernon got there from class. So that went on for 3 or 4 years. And then when I graduated from Wharton, I didn't really want to work for a bank. I went into the real estate development business. McDonald's was my first client. We developed sites for McDonald's up and down the East Coast, and it was really important to me and had an influence on me how they created a brand that they could repeat in multiple markets from scratch, and we know the success they've had.
Now, what happened, few people realize that some of your classmates who you may have run into over the years at Wharton were legendary. You have Steve Wynn, the legendary casino operator, and the former president, Donald Trump. All of you went to Wharton at the same time. Did you meet each other there?
No, we never met each other. We came from middle-class families, and we all went our own way. But it is funny, we were all there about the same times.
So when after Wharton, you had an opportunity to go to work for the legendary Irving Trust Company, correct?
No, when we created our first bank, Commerce, it was hard to raise the first $1 million to capitalize it, and we arranged for bank loans for the people that bought stock. Irving Trust in New York was one of the banks that provided lending to the people that first bought shares in my first bank.
Now, when you were starting out, you were also amazed. You liked the fact that McDonald's, Burger King. So talk to me about some of the initial developments before we continue to talk about what happened with Commerce Bank.
Yeah, when I was in my early teens, business and how you succeeded in business and how you failed in business, I was really interested in how it all worked. And McDonald's was a great example. From nothing, they created this giant chain by giving them a great experience and food they liked. At the time, there were 3 chains in America: Burger King, McDonald's, and Burger Chef. Now, no one remembers Burger Chef. That was the financially strongest of the 3, and it was owned by a Fortune 500 firm. And they are the ones that failed first. McDonald's and BK, Burger King as we call it, didn't have financial support, and the entrepreneurs that founded those businesses created them and built them from scratch.
So tell me about how you decided to build a bank called Commerce Bank.
As we talked about, I like banking. I like working in banks. I like the way a bank works. But as I told you, I had been grilled by my father, don't work for someone else. And I certainly agree with that. So I decided to start a new bank from scratch. I was 26 when we started a new bank in New Jersey called Commerce. We opened in 73. I was 27 then. We raised $1 million to start it in capital. And there we are, a one-office bank. One office, no brand, no money, no capital, no clients. And at the time, there were approximately 24,000 separately owned banks in America, and we were 24,001. So how were we going to grow the business? By looking at it a different way. So the whole model we talk about in our book about building fans, we did a lot of things that came from the retail side of the world that weren't banking. So it's the crossing of successful retail models with banking.
So let's talk about the growth, okay? The initial growth in Pennsylvania, in New Jersey, then Pennsylvania, and how one day you decided to come to the Big Apple, and how the banks in the Big Apple didn't really think of you as a competitor or someone that they had to worry about. That's
right. So we were building new stores, as we call bank branches. That's the way you grow into new markets. And we were growing very well at Commerce. But literally one day I decided, let's expand into Manhattan and see if this model will work in Manhattan. And taking a essentially suburban model into Manhattan is sort of like going from Earth to Mars. And the press was on us. The bank analyst said this small bank couldn't compete against the big players. And we said, what the hell, let's go try it. So we opened our first 2 stores in Manhattan in 98, I think the year was. And everything we did worked great. The customers in New York and Metro New York were dying for something different from the large big banks. So we, in 6 years, built 250 branch offices in the Metro New York market from scratch and kept rolling out the brand. Lots of big companies, and particularly banks, grow primarily from buying. I'm not a buyer. I like to build. So instead of buying banks to grow in new markets, we built our new stores, we recruited people, and we built the business from scratch in each market, which allowed us to keep our model clear, strong, and everywhere, because they wasn't getting diluted by merging other businesses and banks that diluted the model.
Let's talk about how you created the most convenient bank, the model, the most convenient bank originally, and also the power of red.
Bankers thought they were in the banking business. We saw it as a service business. And we thought it was about the customer experience. And we decided a bank is really a government license to accept money from you, your bank deposits. And we learned people cared less about deposit rates than they did about the experience, the hours, the service, the dog, the retail experience. So we moved more in that direction while the other banks continued their old model, crummy service, and we did lots of things. It's lots of little things. It's not any one big thing. The banks wouldn't take your coins. We have free self-service coin counting. The banks were open at limited times. We were open 7 days a week from 8 to 6, I think, every day a week. And it wasn't that we were just open. The customers took that to mean this company is open for my convenience, not for the bank's convenience. And you met Sir Duffield, and my wife was shopping the banks in Manhattan and wanted to go into a Chase office, and the guard stopped her and said, "You can't bring your dog." So she calls me, "Is there some regulation, is some rule?" And I said, no, it's just another stupid bank rule, which we turned into dog's rule. Bring your dog in, we give him treats, we have events, we give him toys. And in both sides of the Atlantic, our concept of dog's rule has been tremendously important to our brand. The customers take that to mean, if you love my dog, you must love me. So when we describe our business model, I talk very little bank talk, because this is really a retail experience that happens to be in the banking field.
How do you find the right bankers to qualify to become the Commerce Banker, originally the Metro Banker, and now today the Republic Banker?
Right. So when we're building our bank and we're building our fans, I think, and you're building your brand, I believe you have to start with a very clear added value model that the customer and staff see. What is different and what is better? So you start with the model. The culture you build has to match the model. You can't have a culture that means anything unless you have a clear model. So we try to recruit people who believe in our philosophy and our model. We train them to deliver our model, and we promote them for delivering our model. We would promote branch managers, not as much on their business performance, but their customer satisfaction numbers. Did they create new fans for us? Did they train people that we could promote? These are all soft things as much as straight budget numbers. I think I told you the number that used to scare me before we sold our first bank, Commerce, is we were getting 21 million in-store customers a month. How could we make 21 million people happy every month? And the way we responded when something went wrong made those customers even stronger fans than before something went wrong. So it's all the whole experience is united together.
Now, the experience is also the bankers. I mean, you had events at Radio City Music Hall. Let's talk about those type of events, which people who work for the bank will never forget.
So Commerce started with a total staff of 9, of which I was one of the 9. And when we sold in 2007, we had 14,000 people. And one of the things we did to reward our team and promote our team is we would have the WOW Awards every year. It was best this, best manager, best this. And the last several years we had it at Radio City Music Hall, 8,000 people at Radio City Music Hall. And I will never forget these events, and our team will never forget these things.
When Commerce opened, okay, you hired certain bankers who had specialties and really knocked the other competition. And I think the greatest example is that you went into the healthcare. The small New Jersey bank went into the New York City healthcare market, which nobody could believe. Everybody said it was going to be Fleet, was going to be the other people over there. It was Citibank who had the healthcare, but all Vernon Hill's small little bank becomes the leader. How do you find people to grow these divisions?
It depends on what area of the bank. The commercial banking and the commercial lending side is generally built by recruiting teams in a specialty area. And we had healthcare banking in our southern part of our business, but in New York and we recruited a healthcare team out of Fleet, and they built a gigantic healthcare business for us.
Now, what's interesting is that when you were opening up all these branches, I think they all had one thing in common. They always had a corner location. They were always large, and in certain cases, they had an enormous amount of safe deposit boxes. Let's talk about that.
At the same time I was doing the banking, I was out buying real estate sites for McDonald's and clients. So I've been in the site selection business for a long time. Almost every retailer can prove to you that the best corner is always worth the price. The best site is always worth the price. So bankers traditionally buy branch sites that are cheap, and they traditionally buy branch sites where there are fewer banks. Our philosophy is buy the best site right in the same row with every other bank and take market share. So we built roughly 500 bank sites in America, and then we did the same thing in Britain. And it's proven to me time over time that the best site is almost always worth the price.
So it's 2007. You decide it's time to leave the bank. What was the return if somebody bought $10,000 worth of shares when Commerce went public and when you sold to Toronto Dominion?
34 years, the annual shareholder return for Commerce, according to Forbes, was 23% a year. That means if you invested in our first year and stayed till 2007, your investment went up 470 times.
I wish I was there at that time and bought the stock, but I wasn't. So it's 2007. Now, how do you decide to go to London to create I'll call it the Commerce Bank of London?
So the bank was sold in 2007. I had nothing to do for a week. And a friend of mine in London had been on my case. You've got to bring your service model to Britain where the service is really bad. I went on a plane. I shopped the banks. I went to the British government and I said, we'd like to get a new bank charter. And they said to me, you would be the first new bank in Britain since 1840. And they said, we'd like to do this. Could you bring the American bank charter forms over? And we could have gone and listened to the Brits and say, you have to adapt this, you have to adapt that. And I decided, let's apply almost 100% of our American model in Britain and London. And everything we did in New York worked better in Britain.
Now, I mean, the big banks, the old line banks, they felt that you weren't going to do anything, okay? You know, the new kid on the block was not going to change banking, but you literally changed retail banking in London completely. What do you attribute it to? The fans?
We gave the Brits a choice. That's what this is all about. Retailers that succeed give the customer a choice. Apple, you don't buy an iPhone cheap because it's cheap. You're buying the Apple experience and you have a choice. So we finally gave the British public, consumer and commercial, a choice. The British bank culture is they're doing you a favor by letting you bank with them. That's their underlying culture. And ours is, of course, the reverse.
Tell me about the parade with Sir Duffield as a float in London.
London is different than America in lots of ways, but they're similar in other ways. So the Lord Mayor of London has had a parade through the middle of London for 800 years. And it's very elaborate and very involved. And they asked our bank to get involved and to sponsor it. So we hand it off to my wife, Shirley, who does all our architecture, design, marketing, and branding. She is the brand queen. She created a 42-foot Sir Duffield float that was the hit of London as he was transported through the streets of London. Marketing for us is much more something like that than it is running ads.
Let's talk about the glass company in Italy.
Yes, Venice makes the best glass in the world for 600 plus years. My wife loves glass, and we were friends with a company in Venice on Murano. And they all got hurt when the crash hit in 07 and 08. So we invested money to grow the business. And it was a match of the Italian magic, the Italian art, and the American models of how to build a brand and make money. So it turned into be a great match of the art of the Italians and the business skills of the Americans about building a brand. So my wife went about building a brand, the experience. If your viewers go to Venice, please visit our experience. There's nothing like it in Venice. And what we did in Venice was not much different than the banking business. We had a company that had never built a real brand, and we taught them how to build a business model that built brands.
The first Metro Bank opened, I believe, in 2010?
Correct, 2010, I checked for you.
Okay, and opening up in 2010, something interesting also happened.
When we opened our first office in central London, July 2010, my wife and I go to every bank opening, 600 of them we've gone to, and we're riding over to this opening in downtown London, and we're saying to ourselves, is this the one that's not going to work? Because you're always concerned that this idea doesn't work. The branch or the store was overwhelmed. British TV did it live from, I think it was 7 to 9 in the morning. There were TV crews. There were 14 TV crews at a branch opening. I did an interview with North Korean TV. I didn't know they had TV. We were really shocked about how the British public accepted it. But it was what, as we said earlier, we gave them a choice. That's what it's about.
So let's talk about, Republic Bank. After, you made an investment in Republic Bank after you sold Commerce, correct?
Correct.
And then, so over the last couple of years, you've grown the bank, okay? And I think the first opening in New York was 2019, okay? Which is another interesting story because you took the former location of a TD Bank on 14th Street and made it a Republic Bank.
When Commerce started to expand in Manhattan, we were out looking for sites, and I do the site selection. And we found a site at 14th and 5th. Chase had been there for years. They had moved up to the second floor to save rent. So we moved into the Chase space as Commerce. And I ran around showing slides saying Chase moved upstairs to save rent, and we moved into the ground floor to get all the banking business. And it was a tremendous office for us. Toronto Dominion bought Commerce in 07, and to save rent, they moved the branch off the corner, and it was vacant, and Republic now moved back in the same space. And it gets you to what Republic's about. It was a normal community bank. It took us a while to rebrand it, rebuild it, convert it into the new American version of Commerce. Same colors, same model, same service, pretty much the same team. And we've grown roughly tenfold since we originally took control of the bank. And it's got all the same things. And you asked me, we were talking about what kind of tagline would we have for Republic. Commerce color was red. When Toronto Dominion bought Commerce, they painted everything green. It's like painting the Coca-Cola bottle green. The Commerce customers went berserk. It was like they broke the brand. So our slogan for Republic in every market, including New York, is the power of red is back. In other words, we're bringing back our brand. And to my surprise, it worked everywhere. And in Manhattan, it worked great. I thought it'd been 7 or 8 years since we used that line with Commerce, but thank God they remembered it.
How did you decide to write the book that fans are not customers?
I wrote the book for a couple reasons. One, it tells our story. It's good to market. But we also use it. It's not about us and banking as much as about teaching people how to build a business from scratch, how to grow a business. And it's more in that vein than it is using our example. I think, as I said earlier, the basic foundation of any business that succeeds, profit or nonprofit, is to build a brand that creates fans. Remember, your brand is what you are, who you are, and what the customers expect. It means everything, and it means from the smallest thing to the most important thing. So everything you do creates, affects your brand. And we are fanatic about our brands. One of the funny stories, those of you people who are watching have been into branch banks, and I'll use this example. If you want to write something, They send you over to the counter. See if I can. They got this pen anchored to the counter. We got to protect this pen. The last years of commerce, we were giving away 28 million pens a month, branded pens. So do I want to protect my pen in the counter, or do I want 28 million brand symbols circulating in our market? And we look at everything. How do we make the experience better, and how do we make the brand better?
Okay, speaking of branding, one of the most important brands that you've ever been is with your wife, Shirley, a Pratt graduate. So tell me a bit about how you met Shirley and, you know, her involvement with you over the year growing the company.
Yeah, Shirley and I got married the same year the bank started at Commerce. She went to Pratt, and she has her own business that does architecture, design, construction, marketing, and branding. All those skills are usually done by multiple firms. She does them all and has a unique ability to see the whole. Steve Jobs at Apple's the clearest example we all know. He saw the vision. He made all the parts work together. So when we buy new store sites, I go out and approve it. She lets me know if she could convert it to our look. And then the last thing I hear about is the day we open. So she has been from the beginning the brand queen and executes it every day, whether it's in America or in Britain.
So I think in conclusion, it was really well that your father said to you, don't work for anybody.
And he was right.
He was right on the mark. You have been a visionary. You've been a leader in banking, and everybody knows any bank affiliated or with Vernon Hill involved is always going to be a success. And thank you so much for being with me today.
Michael, thank you.